Welcome to the AI Corner. I'm your host, Mike Bailey, here to spotlight the people shaping New Zealand's future. In today's episode, we're speaking with Susana Tomaz. Susana is a molecular biologist turned AI and education leader. Susana now leads the school-wide integration strategy for AI in education at Westlake Girls. She is a fellow at the International Research Centre on AI and a global mentor on AI education across the world as well. Susana is on a mission to make AI literacy accessible to every learner, teacher, and community. Welcome to the pod, Susana.
Thank you, Mike. It's amazing to be here. Thank you for the invite. Really excited about this podcast.
Thank you very much. It's you've got a hell of a background. So, what first got you interested in AI? Was there a moment or a project that really pulled you in?
Yeah, there was a moment in time triggered by my students, to be honest. They were freaking out about Snapchat AI just turning up in their conversations and asking a lot of questions. Are you human? What are you? How does he know my location? My location is switched off. So that kind of was like a little light bulb moment around the impact of the technology. And when I got into my project with the Asia Europe Foundation on how to transform education through the integration of AI, they just really opened my thinking, and I could see that disruption was heading our way. So I decided to be proactive. And so last year I did a master's with Academy X on technological futures with AI in education, and that really helped me build my capability and bring that to 20 odd years of educational leadership as well.
Amazing. Well, you've got the theory to back up the practical as well, which is really exciting. And I suppose what convinced you that AI wasn't just another technology trend, but something that would fundamentally reshape education?
Well, I guess I've always been very excited about transforming education. I think that's what's kept me in education for so long. I'm hopeful, optimistic, and I could really see the potential of that disruption, that positive disruption, but also being aware of also some of the challenges around the technology that a lot of people compare with the calculator. I find the comparison really limiting and very frustrating. I mean, if you think about it, generative AI is the first technology designed with the purpose of simulating increasing performance and really replace their human thinking, and calculators don't do that. They're a passive tool. They tell you what to do, and it gives you a result. So I think that this is the first time we're seeing a technology being developed that has profound implications, and this is not just for education, for society as a whole as well. So yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It can level the playing field for so many people, and it really raises the floor of education, and it even enables students to basically move from potentially an assessment-driven path to more of a learner-focused path where the technology is learning based on how the person wants to learn and how they expect to be taught, and identifies their gaps and tailors the or personalizes that whole experience to them, right? Which can really overcome a lot of stress for the student, right? And stop procrastination, help them get through a lot of the problems that they're facing. At the same time, there are risks, of course, like the brain rot gets talked about a lot with students potentially losing some of their those critical foundational skills that we used to learn through writing in a textbook back in the day. And of course, there are the potential risks around adoption being hindered with technology or access to certain models between different children. So I'm sure you see all positives and potential risks with that, and you have a lot of parents and the community talking to you about those challenges to overcome, no doubt.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's really important to be mindful, especially in the education space. And when you're talking about young people that are still developing their neuroplasticity and that cognition, that layer is really crucial. And we're talking about, a tool that could really be used as, thinking companion, but it could also be used to shortcut the learning and to rush into outputs. I think that's why AI integration needs to be purposeful. It needs to be not left to chance, and needs to be really it needs to hold the teacher, the educator, is the pedagogical expert, and think about the metacognition aspects of the use of the tool.
Yeah, the teacher, as you say, the educator is almost the linchpin of this whole process, right? In terms of how they use it, how they can deploy it to accelerate the child's learning, but also to accelerate their own process without taking away that human element of what it means to be a teacher. And I suppose on your point of not leaving things to chance, you've mentioned in the past that schools can't wait forever for the Ministry of Education to decide to generate an AI policy, and they have, we have to lead with purpose, I suppose, from a school standpoint. What gave you the confidence to push forward before other schools have done? Because Westlake Girls really is at the cutting edge when it comes to AI integration within this country in particular.
Mm. I guess there's something that I find really powerful. If you think that the children who entered ECE this year, early childhood education, they're going to be entering the world of work in 2035. Now, artificial generative intelligence is predicted to reach us in early 2030. So the children there, we are starting to build through our education system are going to be working in their world. And it's really difficult for us to actually, well, even for me to really get the depth of understanding of what a world with generative general intelligence looks like. So knowing that is really important to really think about how we can best prepare young people for their unknown future. And I guess this is my perspective, and I'm really grateful that Westlake Girls had the confidence to have me lead such an important strategic initiative, and I have to really think carefully around how we have that transparency build, that trust across the community, because we are talking about young people, and how do we build that capability in terms of AI literacy, because without AI literacy, those deeper conversations can't happen, and you can't have AI literacy without interacting with AI. You need to use AI, to learn about AI, to really understand the depth of disruption that is coming, and that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I read something today that someone said trying to learn AI by, doing a theoretical test is kind of like when you do your learner license in New Zealand. You're not actually learning to drive the car, but you're just learning the theory without any of the reality, which doesn't get you far. But and I suppose at Westlake Girls, you've built the AI strategy as you've mentioned. What's the experience been like to build an AI strategy at a high school, and how would you recommend other schools begin to think about that approach within their own organization and community?
So I just love strategy. I love that depth of thinking. I think it's really important to have a really solid research, theoretical understanding of generative AI, the implications, what's out there, what are others doing internationally, because I think that sometimes in New Zealand we can be quite siloed and actually forget the power of collaboration and working together. And I guess UNESCO has really led the way through a really high level consultancy across the world on the development of the AI competencies for both teachers and students. And I guess my advice to those just starting on their journey, I think that it needs to have an ecosystem approach, and the way we've started the way we studied at Westlake is we engaged with a futurist. Francis Valentine came and spoke to the parents, the students, the staff, and there I think was a really important ignition point to raise the awareness of the disruption that was heading our way, and really to shift the conversation from oh, it's just a trend, AI is here and it's not going anywhere, as frustrating that might sound or exciting. It depends on people's perspective, and that's the world the children are going into. So having an AI policy that really fosters that transparency, builds trust, and guidelines that really puts the teacher and the pedagogy, which is the science of teaching, at the center. So it's not about the tool, it's about the learning, is quite crucial. So that would be my suggestion as a starting point: policy, guidelines, all through consultation, so that everyone is on the same page, and we are collectively building that capability and addressing the disruption that is coming.
So important. There are so many organizations who are throwing technology at the problem or the opportunity, right? But you really need that foundational governance model and operating model and ways of working and capability development at the center of any transformation, right? And so building AI literacy across staff, students, facilities, others around the organizer or the school. What surprised you most about where the resistance or the excitement has come from?
That's a very good question. Most of the resistance, from my perspective, comes from lack of either AI literacy or awareness of the disruption, there, and the capability of the tools and what's being developed. So for me, it's really important to, when engaging, when talking to people about that disruption, to really put it back on what the purpose of education is. And the purpose of education is not really to develop young people that are successful in the classroom only, in that little, what I call is the greenhouse effect. So the purpose of education is to build that holistic child, not just as an individual, but also as a successful member of society. And when you put it that way, there's so much more than, standardized testing, knowledge, rich learning. There's a really important component, and even more so when we've got technology that simulates human behavior. It really brings to the core of the questioning, what does it really mean to be human, and all those skills that we really need to foster and develop in our young people. So when you shift the dialogue to that perspective, when you shift it away from the plagiarism roadblock, which a lot of educators are, stuck on for good reasons, because we've got a technology that creates new content and is very hard to detect. We need to really shift that conversation to the teaching, to the learning. So one thing is the plagiarism, and plagiarism has always happened, and there's some research from Stanford University that shows that's always been there. 70% of students in the States plagiarize. I think the conversation needs to be more around preparing that holistic person to face a world that is going to be dominated by AI, and at the same time reassure how we keep all the data private. How do we put those guardrails in place so that we can experiment and innovate in a way that safeguards data?
And I suppose you touched on a really important point is bringing people on that journey, right? Have you felt a lot of resistance from certain parents, teachers, children, etc.? Is that shining through? How do some of those individuals react or respond? Do they stay with the school perhaps, or what does that mean for the institution?
We've brought parents along in the conversation, and I think that is very important. And if you think, parents are living in the world that is being disrupted presently by AI, so they understand the need to develop that critical thinking, the analytical thinking in young people, to have really good, responsible agency when interacting with AI, especially when they're not even aware that it's overlaid everything that they do digitally. So much so their laptops now have a little key there, it just takes them straight to Copilot. So I think that we had really positive feedback from parents, and I think that feedback would not have been positive had we not done our due diligence with policy, governance, and guidelines, and having that transparency. It's really interesting because at the moment we're developing AI literacy among students, and that feedback is really insightful. So most of the times there's the association with AI being bad, or AI seen as, if you use AI, you're cheating, and you can really see their limitation in terms of AI literacy, of understanding the use of the tool. But everyone is quite open because we have put no pressure on the use of AI. We put guardrails, very clear around the tools that we're using, and we continue building that literacy with staff and with students, and very open there. We're not really forcing anyone to adopt AI in the classroom until they feel confident. And at the same time, they might be experimenting with lesson planning, with resource development, prompt engineering, building that capability in the background, and not necessarily feeling like they're forced to be integrating it in the classroom. So yeah, it's quite a complex approach. And of course, also having in mind that everyone is in different stages in their AI literacy journey. So when you do build their capability, that's something that you do need to take into account and to design around.
You mentioned when we spoke to catch up beforehand about there were beginner, intermediate, and advanced type buckets. Can you talk a bit more about how you segment users or individuals within the school and train them through that progression ladder?
Yes. So part of the roadmap for strategic AI integration that I have developed obviously has impact measures. You have to have metrics, triangulation of data, and there's very little research evidence around that. So this is something that I'm really motivated to generate. So it was important to use the UNESCO AI competency framework, as well as the sales framework, which has been developed here in New Zealand, to inform a baseline criteria of where teachers and staff see themselves in terms of their AI literacy journey. And that is not just around the tech savvy skills, is much more than that, is understanding the ethical, the implications, the responsible use, the data anonymization protocols, which we have put in place. So that's what we've done. And what we do is, last time we did PD, which was 2 weeks ago, we did some training. We asked the teachers to indicate where they saw themselves, at beginner level, intermediate, advanced, and we tailor that. And we're really lucky to have AI champs, and those are teachers. They are also upskilling in the use of AI. They have delivered the activity, so it allows us to really personalize and tailor it to the level of the participants for each of the workshop, but also ask what it is that you need to shift you from where you are to where you want to be. And so that co-design process was really important to keep their momentum and people engaged.
Fascinating. And I suppose just on the topic of AI, I mean, inherently that often means more screen time, right? And
Mm.
I've seen your comments around AI as a chance to reinvest time into deeper human learning, which I'm sure a lot of parents listening to this podcast will be ecstatic about, but also very conscious of the fact that more AI means more technology, more screens. How do you sort of balance that, I suppose?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because there's a new movement, which is the 2 hour movement, which is basically leveraging on AI infused, well, AI tutors or AI tools to really focus on personalized knowledge delivery engagement with students, and then freeing up the time for skills development. So I guess there are several ways that you can approach it, but one could be around productivity. So how can we optimize the use of AI tools with educators? That could be around lesson planning, always with the oversight of the educator. It could be around data analysis. It could be around feedback loops. So how do we free up the teacher? How do we increase that productivity to release more time to obviously put back into that relational learning? That's one way. The other way would be around optimizing feedback. So let's just say a student writes an essay, you got a class of 30 students, the turnaround to give meaningful feedback is quite long. Sometimes can take 2 weeks to just get through all the essays. So how could we use AI to do checkpoints and provide that peer feedback through prompt engineering to the student? So there's, in the process of 2 weeks, there's exponential amounts of iterations that happen, and then how could they push the learner a little bit further to the point there when you then get to that point of checking the essay, that iteration has already happened. Obviously, there needs to have the oversight of the teacher. It needs to be developed, either potentially could be through a customized GPT or a gem, but there are possibilities of utilizing it in that way. And another way that I'm exploring it at the moment is also through developing AI as a team player. So if you're doing collaborative work and getting the perspective of the AI as an additional team member of the group, and to really see how their different perspective adds value to the conversation. So yes, I guess the most important thing is the relational learning needs to be at the center, and not to get distracted by what I refer to as the Kia effect, which is like is very appealing. Every day you got X amount of new tools being developed, and can be very distracting. The core of the teaching and the learning needs to be on the learning outcomes. What do you want to get out of the learning? And is AI going to augment the thinking process, the critical thinking, or is it just going to replace it? And so it's really important to be very critical around using AI, not just because it's a tool, but to really augment their learning. And that's quite difficult to do.
Mm. Yeah, as you say, there are a lot of accelerants which quicken up those feedback processes or help children navigate ambiguity across multiple groups or students, rather than the teacher having to attend to everybody. There are so many opportunities there, and it really is helping the kids develop a new mental model, or creating a new sense of curiosity as part of the way that they think, without having to rely on a teacher for every interaction, which is really interesting. And it sounds as though you seem very advanced with your approach and thinking, and very evolved in the strategy within the school. I know you're part of a number of global networks of AI integrators in education, but what can we learn from other countries about approaching AI in education, and where do you think we're ahead, perhaps, compared to other countries around the world?
From my perspective and from my international networks, when I look at Finland, Estonia, for example, and I see the digital citizenship is really formalized into the curriculum. We see the building of the analytical, critical skills through education, because I know there's a lot of conversation around banning social media, and that's another conversation for another day. But if we think about social media, it does rely on AI algorithms. And I think that is very important to have measures in place. And we're talking about students, but this applies to every New Zealander. And when you look at countries like I said, like Singapore, Finland, Estonia, and they've got really good governance, strategy, and guidelines, policy specific for education. China is embedding AI into the curriculum from elementary school. California, the same. When you look at all that, even Australia, and depends on state, the approach is different state by state. But New South Wales have developed a tool with additional safeguards that allows the sandbox experimentation and their building of critical thinking and AI literacy. I feel that we are behind in the conversation, and I do worry about that, because I know a lot of schools are experimenting with AI without a policy in place, and the equity gap that already exists in New Zealand is just growing bigger because we just do not have those processes in place. So there's a really big concern. We are really lagging behind, and we got so much potential as a nation for innovation, and for we're really good with the use of technology and the creativity around innovative initiatives.
Yeah, it's critical to the future of not only the children that you're teaching and all of the other schools around New Zealand, but just to the future of the country, making sure that we have literate individuals to manage it moving forward. Do you have many peers across New Zealand that you engage with on this topic in education? Is there a group or community that you can tap into?
Yes, we're really lucky through the AI Forum. So the working stream for education is a very active working stream, and we are looking at how we drive that change, how we support schools with the AI implementation. We're also really lucky to have a community of practice, AI community of practice, that has been endorsed through the AI Forum, and it has about 400 educators already part of that community, where we can bring our concerns, share resources, collaborate, and start building that ecosystem approach to support everyone in this journey. So it's a really good initiative, and I do recommend any educator to join and to reach out if they want to know how they can join the community.
Excellent. Well, hats off to you, Susanna, for leading the charge, especially within a big school in Auckland and across the country as well. It's no small task, I'm sure, and well done for driving it forward. Coming to the end of the podcast, would love to hit you with 5 questions as part of a quick fire round, if you're okay with it.
Go for it.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right. So ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini?
Hi. Yeah, I can't really give you a one answer. It really depends on what you want to get out of it.
Model dependent. I like it.
Yeah, model dependent.
Most overhyped AI trend right now.
It has to be AI agents, really. Everyone is talking about it, and it's really curious because there's so much bias. There's so much hallucinations. I'm really curious to see how that evolves.
And when we can finally all land on what the definition of an AI agent is, or agentic AI, that'll be a step forward for sure.
Very true.
Third question, open source models or closed?
There's positives and negatives for both. Okay, so open source models I think about accessibility, but that comes with the risk of if something is free, what was it they say? Is it too good to be true? And it is. It always comes at cost, which is data sourcing. So if it's free, they want your data. So that's why AI literacy is really important. So people are aware of that. So that's a benefit. And obviously customized means that you could bring in the layers like cultural responsiveness, more ethical and guardrails. So yeah, not a straight answer to give you. Sorry, Mike.
No problem. As you say, if something's free, then you're more than likely the product, right? So,
Yeah.
and then number four, one New Zealand company quietly doing great AI work, and even better if it's in the education space.
Yes. I have to say Soul Machines, like, since their Baby X concept, they've just been innovating in such a transformational way. Yeah, so their avatars they're developing, I can see a lot of potential for education, not just education, but I can see how they would really enhance their virtual interaction with building knowledge and dealing with gaps and skills with students.
Excellent. Yeah, incredibly advanced stuff. Last question for you. What's your number one recommendation for people getting started in AI?
Get onto it. Like, just do it.
Just sign up.
It's yeah. Don't worry about doing the training on prompt engineering. Um, just get started. Just engage ChatGPT. Obviously, don't put any personalized data into it, but just give it a go. And it's so intuitive, and that's my advice.
Enough said. Well, thank you to Susana for joining us today. That was a fascinating conversation. And also to our listeners, please subscribe to the channel for weekly episodes to hear more from people building New Zealand's AI future. Until next time, thanks for tuning in to the AI Corner.